Hello, loved one. Welcome back to your Divine Feminine Village. Once you're here, let me know. Put a comment in the chat. I would love to welcome you by name. And throughout this time together, I would love if you'd share your reflections, your questions, so we can really weave this Divine Feminine community together. I am in Kentucky. I have relocated. I'm in my parents' house, and so much has changed. I'm in a very liminal state, um, and I'm feeling a little under the weather. So, we're going to focus on the mother, the inner mother archetype, the summer solstice today. And I think we're going to keep it 30, 45 minutes tops. Probably won't go for the full hour. If you're here live with me, thank you for being here. And if you're watching the replay, we're sending so much love to you as you time travel back with us and we feel your energy here. It's funny because I haven't gone live here since Beltane, and I was also um, ungrounded then. I was traveling, I was in Colorado, and now here I am in Kentucky. So, by the next cross quarter day, which I guess will be Lamas, I should be rooted and grounded in my new home, and I want y'all to be the first to know that John and I were just approved to rent this incredible historic home in downtown Lexington. It is like 1800s, like maybe 1850s, that kind of style. So I'm feeling really grateful today, really honored to know that that's where I'm headed. Yay! How are you all doing? It's been a while. It's been a while. Um, we are gonna kind of kick this off and make it run kind of similar to how we did Beltane. If you joined for Beltane, we're celebrating this this holy day of summer solstice, which is actually in 3 days on Sunday, June 20th, for those of us here in the Northern Hemisphere. And I wanted to go live a little early. Let me know if you can hear me or if you're having trouble hearing me or anything like that. Because I'm using these new Bluetooth headphones. Okay, but we're celebrating summer solstice, so I'm going to take us through some history of the solstice, why we honor it, what we do to honor it, what our ancestors might have done, particularly focusing on Old Europe, which is my ancestry, although there are rituals and traditions from so many cultures around the world with this solstice event. So I encourage you to find what your ancestors did. And in this way, right, we don't appropriate from other cultures. We are breathing new life into the rituals of our ancestors. And in that way, we are reweaving that thread back through time and connecting to Mama Earth, connecting to the sun and its solar phases. We're connecting to the moon because we're going to talk about the 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 related moon phase, which is full moon energy at the summer solstice. And we're connecting to our ancestors who lived before us. We have billions of ancestors, and it is in my practice to connect with them. They live in you as part of your DNA. They're as close to you as your skin, your bones, your blood, your breath. And in doing all of this work, why do we do it? We do it to feel more grounded, more connected, to remember what it is to be human and to be on the earth. That's why we do this work. So if you're here with me, I honor you, I witness you, and I hope that this serves your journey for this season of summer solstice and the technical season of summer. And then, of course, this phase, which is all about ovulation, full moon, and the mother archetype. So, welcome, welcome. Let's get into it a little bit. Maybe if you have a candle, you can light it with me. I don't have my big altar. I don't have all of the items that I provided guidance on gathering because I'm in transition. As I said, I'm halfway between homes right now. So I do have a little candle here. And the candle on the altar for summer solstice really represents the sun at its peak. We will have our longest day and our shortest night. So I've got like a little torch here that I found in the kitchen. So I'm going to use that. And as we light it, we connect our intentions around the world, across time and space, sharing in this ritual, this wisdom, sharing our heart. Take a deep breath in, let it go. And so it is. Here we will come back to it. So I would say today you might want to gather your journal and something to write with. Obviously a candle if you have one, and a stone. It could be a crystal or a rock that you love, a gemstone, anything like that that you want to connect with. Go ahead and find that. We'll use it later for our ritual. We're going to do a bit of breath work, a bit of visualization, a bit of body work, and a bit of ritual. So let's just play together. Yeah? All right, beautiful one. Summer solstice. The word solstice literally means the sun is standing still. The sun is standing still. And you know, the winter solstice here in Northern Hemisphere is around December 21st. And you can look back through my sermons, especially if you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you're in our group, or listening to the replay. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere around mid-June, then you will want to look into the winter solstice resources that I have on my website, ellengilbert.com. And if you were there with us and you look back and remember, winter solstice was all about the darkness, the longest night, the feminine, because the moon, the nighttime, rules the feminine. And it's that darkness of the womb kind of energy, right? It's all about healing and regeneration and resting and bringing into balance all of the ways we've internalized productivity as our worth. Um, and I think winter solstice is such a like witchy season to plant seeds and to rest. It's associated with the bleed in menstruation. So you can just get all those like witchy vibes, right? And today we're talking about summer solstice. So we're talking about the exact opposite on the wheel of the year, when we have the longest day and the shortest night. So we're honoring the light, we're honoring the sun, we're honoring divine masculine energy. Actually, at this point, I could have done a whole training on divine masculine today. I chose not to, but I will be writing and sharing a bit more on that as we move into the holiday itself on Sunday. And I did share some tips in my newsletter today, if you got that. My favorite ways to connect with divine masculine energy, which is all about groundedness and security and safety. And, you know, I like to say masculine is about survival and feminine is about thriving, thriving life. So we need both and we want both, and both are required to create all life. So today we honor divine masculine, and we look to the mother archetype. So if that's confusing, let me explain. We have 8 quarter and cross quarter days and 8 divine feminine archetypes along the wheel of the year. You can find this image in the media for our group. I've shared it there. Um, and as we've been doing our trainings, I did some sermons on the winter solstice, as I mentioned, and on Imbolc, which is the first cross quarter day of the year. And then, of course, I started this group and did a Beltane ritual where we talked about the lover archetype, if you remember that. And the lover archetype is the first face of the mother archetype. So the mother has two faces. She is both the lover and the mother. And the reason that we split them up is to kind of see all the different sides of ourselves. There are many more archetypes. There's the maiden, there's the crone, there's the wild woman, and then we have the 8. We have so many liminal archetypes in between. Um, and don't worry about getting them right, getting them wrong. Just feel into the energy of each season and what it represents and feels like for you. And you can use your menstrual cycle to tap into this along the wheel of your cycle. So menstruation, pre-ovulation, ovulation, pre-menstrual, and then menstruation again. So you can use your menstrual cycle, you can use the moon phases, right? Or you can use the solar phases, the earth seasons. And that's why I really mark these solar seasonal changes and like to highlight the archetype associated. So for summer, it is the mother archetype. And in the life stages, she represents a woman during her childbearing years, um, a woman who has crossed that threshold from childhood and even adolescence into being a full-fledged, productive member of society at her peak energy, her peak fertility. Um, she is making herself of service for her community. She finds her purpose in doing this, and she has a lot of resources to give and share with others. So maybe you've experienced this when you're ovulating. Um, you feel like superwoman. You feel like truly limitless energy, and it can be really exciting. It's like that movie Limitless. It's like, wow, like everything feels magical. Everyone looks a little bit softer around the edges. It's like you've got your rose-colored glasses on and you feel so sexy and alive and you just want to share everything with everyone. Lucy Peach, who is one of my period mentors, calls it the give phase, is what she calls it. The premenstruum is the get phase. That's when we cross over into our inner autumn and we're able to rest and soothe and take from the world. But to kind of balance that out in summer, we're giving of ourselves freely. And I think that this is so interesting because, well, we're going to get into some of the shadows associated with that. Um, but I know for a lot of us, we see women in our lives just giving and giving and giving of themselves. So, how do we reconcile this archetype? An archetype is not a person, right? It's an energy. So, how do we reconcile wanting to tap into this archetype of giving and sharing without overdoing it and depleting ourselves? And so that's where self love comes in. And we're going to practice that today. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Um, yeah, but this summer solstice energy is all things celebration. Just like the full moon, it's like we are staying up all night, we are having a party, we're having a big bonfire. It's really beautiful this year in 2021 because many of us have been vaccinated. We're starting to come out of COVID, out of quarantine, and reconnect maybe for the first time in over a year with our neighbors, our friends, our families, our communities, our loved ones, sharing a bottle of wine, sharing a meal, a feast, even, long conversations, looking at the stars. This is what it's all about, and this is what our ancestors knew about this time of year. It was the time of revelry and rollicking and dancing. Um, Really, generally, a time to enjoy life to the maximum, to be a little hedonistic and worship nature. So that's what I want you to think about this season, but particularly this weekend. Like, how are you going to mark summer solstice in some of these ways? And if you have any shame around that, it's really interesting to look at. I know we talked about shame at Beltane, and a lot of these are similar themes you might be noticing. And that's because um, for my ancestors, the ancient Celts, Beltane actually was the beginning of summer. So it was different from the equatorial solstice. But then in other cultures, like in Germany and in parts of Scandinavia, midsummer, June 20th, thereabouts, was actually the day. So you'll see a lot of crossover and a lot of similarities between the two. But this is like full summer, whereas Beltane was like the liminal portal between spring and summer halfway. So now we're into summer. So this is like the time to go for it. And I'm curious, does anyone feel shame, even maybe thinking about having such a party? I think after COVID, after having to be so safe and protective and separate, it can be a little unnerving to be back in groups again. I haven't done like a big party yet, but I've been doing smaller parties, getting bigger, and trying to ease my nervous system into it a bit and just remind myself that it is safe. It is safe. So, yeah, very interesting. This is like the time to go for it. That party you always dreamed about throwing, you know, um, going to some big event or staying up all night, going to a concert or something. That's actually what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to this like wedding music festival situation and we're going to have so much fun. Okay, so this is from Forest Whisperer. I follow her on Instagram. She's a friend of a friend, and I highly recommend her stuff. But she says this: water, fire, herbs, divination, the potency of midsummer. Purify yourself with living water. Make offerings to the water spirits. Bathe in the morning dew. Begin with friction. Leap the fire. Bless the fields with smoke from holy plants. Walk the fields before dawn. Pick a bouquet of 77 and a half sacred herbs. Place it under your pillow. Follow the divination of your dreams. So, this is a time for divination, which is reading signs from the universe, whatever divination practices your ancestors had, or just your deck of tarot cards. This is a time of collecting dew from the grass in the early morning, so you might want to set out a bowl and see what happens and work with that water in some of your spells or just put it on your altar. But also, you can bathe yourself with it. Um, and then she also mentions purifying with smoke. So, as we talked about in Beltane, it's kind of a similar tradition, right? Where you use smoke to bless the fields and to bless the land and to ask for a good harvest for this for this fertile season. So a lot of the similar kind of rituals apply. Um, some other things that people in old European cultures used to do, and this is why we have a stone today, is that they would literally take a stone and they would bring it to the bonfire, the big bonfire that the community would have on midsummer, and they would whisper a wish to the stone. Because remember, all things are animate, all things have a life and a spirit, right? So carrying it to the bonfire, whispering your desire, your wish, and carrying it around the fire 3 times and then tossing it to the flames to release it. That was one tradition. Another that you can do yourself is to find a natural spring or a natural pool, or to even just gather water like in a bird bath or some kind of rain barrel container if you have anything like that. I mentioned gathering dew, but you can do the same. You can circle it 3 times and you can toss a silver coin into the water and make another kind of wish, right? Um, and then the final little ritual that I wrote down, I thought was so cute, is that you can write down on paper what you wish to release, and you can send it down a moving body of water. So, let's be eco-friendly in the products we choose to use here, but even finding like a strip of bark that you can write on or something that you can talk to and then release, you don't have to write, but putting it down into the ocean if you live near the ocean, or into the river, into some sort of creek or stream, and letting it be carried away as a sign of surrender and release and letting go, which is so important to talk about here. The mother is all about receiving. She's got that face of the lover, right? We talked about the lover with Beltane. So there's so much energy of receiving pleasure, receiving blessings, receiving all of the good things that we're celebrating. Because to celebrate, you have to receive, you have to let it in. And there's a lot of shame around that. And then it's also about giving. So it's the giving and receiving in tandem with one another with this archetype. And I just think that that's so beautiful. And what a lesson of divine feminine for this season, that we have to let go, we have to surrender, and we have to let in and receive. So, um, both, they're two sides of the same coin, actually. And that's where this whole idea of sacrifice comes from. Yeah, it's like, what do we have to let go of in order to make room, in order to cleanse, in order to receive? Um, so that just, I love that about the mother archetype. She has so many different faces and things to teach, and I feel like I'll never fully figure her out, but it's a lifelong goal to work with her and come into more understanding and relationship with her. So that's a bit about the history, a bit about ritual ideas, and I'll just quickly cover altar guidance before we move into really talking about the mother archetype and doing our own little ritual together. So, some altar guidance, I think I already put in the Facebook group. You can put a bowl of milk on your altar. Obviously, the mother produces milk, so that's a really nice offering for her, something to conjure her and remind you of her. You can put smooth stone on your altar as well. Um, Fresh flowers in bloom, and really any flowers that are blooming on the land you live. Um, any flowers work this time of year. Sunflowers would be lovely because the sun, we're honoring the sun. Pomegranate fruit, Mother Mary icons. Oh, and I have one I just bought in New Mexico before I moved here, so I'll need to dig her up and out of my packed boxes. Icons of pregnant or birthing people, so like fertility goddesses, that type of icon. My sister Holly just had her maternity photos taken, and I am like getting major mother goddess vibes from them. They're so beautiful. Um, Earth goddess icon. So any representation of Mama Earth, Pachamama, green goddesses, um, as well as anything that helps connect you to your matrilineal ancestry. So, photos of your grandmother, great grandmother, aunts on your mother's side, items belonging to ancestors who are no longer with you, um, letters from them, foods that they liked, if you want to invite them into your ritual, if they are well enough to work with. Um, Yeah, so those would all be good things to have on your altar, as well as anything representing the sun. So we've got our candle now, maybe your sunflowers, but also anything that's like a disc or a pinwheel would represent the sun. Any type of fire, obviously, and all kinds of wild herbs. Really, anything goes. Um, but herbs, this is the time of year to harvest herbs and like fresh herbs, not dried herbs, and then anything from an oak tree. So we have in Celtic mythology this tale of the oak king, and he ruled over the summer months. And so it could be oak leaves, oak bark, oak boughs, anything from an oak tree, just as in the winter we have our evergreen, we have our pine and our holly, things like that. So this is sort of the opposite. Yeah. What kinds of things do y'all have on your altar? I'd love to hear and get ideas. Um, Beautiful. So let's move on to the mother archetype. So she is like ultimate earth goddess vibes. That's what I get from her. I mean, Mama Earth on upon whom we live and from whom we get our sustenance in our life is the goddess herself, is the mother herself. So there's really no separation between the land you walk upon, the land you live on, and this archetype. Um, so she's a very different one in that she's that close. And we can have a relationship with the planet directly. So that's really exciting. Um, as I mentioned, the lover is one of her two faces. And so the lover is all about pleasure, um, receiving, accepting, letting good things in, letting ourselves have reasons to celebrate. And then obviously the lover becomes with child, and so the mother is sort of that natural next step um, in sort of the wheel of life. Whether or not you actually have children, the mother is that phase of life where you're at your peak, you're at your peak energy, maybe producing art that you love or living into your purpose in some way. It does not have to be through actual literal motherhood. We can all tap into her at those years. And some teachers, like I follow the Mother Spirit on Instagram and highly recommend her work. She talks about being like in your like late 30s, early 40s in our culture before really crossing over into this archetype because we really stretch out childhood and kind of infantilize women in our culture. Um, and then others say it's at menarche, it's at first bleed that you enter this phase. So feel it out for yourself. You get to decide where you are. Maybe you're still feeling major maiden vibes, and that's okay. Or maybe you've already experienced empty nest or menopause or perimenopause or retirement, and you're starting to feel yourself in that liminal space again between mother and crone, which we would call the wild woman phase or the queen phase of your life. So this is in context of the life cycle, yeah, where the mother falls. But we can access her at all times. It's not just during those years. We can always call upon her. Just as we will always have our inner child within, we will always have our inner mother within. And the medicine we can receive from the mother archetype is pleasure, which we talked about at Beltane, but also self nurturing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we meet our own needs? How do we nurture those vulnerabilities? How do we give love and nourishment and protection and safety, a felt sense of safety to ourselves? Another form of medicine the mother carries is action. Whereas the winter solstice is all about rest, summer solstice is all about action. Whether we are giving to others or claiming pleasure for ourselves, we are moving, we are acting, we are doing. This is the time for acting on the great stage of life. So those are some medicines to work with the mother. So anytime you need a little nurturing, you can call on her. And then the shadows that we work with the mother are burnout and shame. And we talked about shame at Beltane with the lover archetype. And now we're talking about burnout today. Burnout in a capitalist culture that really gets women to identify with the mother archetype in an unhealthy way. Like, that is my only purpose. That is my only reason for living. And so then what happens when the child grows up, when the child moves away, when menopause kicks in, when those looks and fertility have faded? What happened? So, just one second here. So, burnout. That's the shadow of the mother archetype. And then the work we can do with her is to heal the mother wound, which I'm going to get into next, and spiritual reparenting, which you might have heard that term spiritual reparenting kind of thrown around. It's getting more and more popular, so we'll talk about what that means. But what I want you to be really cognizant of is your own vulnerability and how you react to your own vulnerability. Because to work with inner mother, we have to work with inner child. And depending on your inner child, your childhood, and just where you're at any given moment, you might notice a lot of resistance to being vulnerable, even with yourself. And we're just talking about in the context of being alone with yourself. You might notice putting up walls, defensiveness, resistance. Maybe it's in the form of escape or numbing or lashing out or a constant movement, afraid to sit still with the vulnerability. And this is where the mother can really come in and help. So all of this work is spiralic and it's nonlinear, it's multidimensional. What I mean by that is we shapeshift from inner child to inner mother as needed, depending on the lesson. We can call in inner crone wisdom at any time. That's that future self, elder self wisdom we all contain, regardless of age. So we have to kind of have this concept of nonlinear or mythic time. That's why I've got the spiral behind me. That's the cycle, the wheel of the year. That's what we're really working with when we work with these archetypes. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. The mother wound is the work of Bethany Webster. So when I talk about the mother wound, what I am talking about, and I highly recommend you check out her work, is the unique bond between mother and daughter in a patriarchy, and the ways that the mother's dependence on performing in a patriarchy gets translated and embedded into the daughter. And there's so many examples of this that I see with my clients and in myself all the time. So the reason for the wound, we call it the wound, happens when the daughter feels caught between her own intuition, her own wisdom, and the mother's approval or society's approval, patriarchy's approval. Things like being pretty, things like, being successful in a certain way, or having a partner, having a child, having the right career, whatever it is. It's that way that patriarchy gets filtered through the mother and projected onto the daughter. And she has to choose between what she truly wants and what she feels is being asked of her. And the reason this is so painful is because our mothers literally represent life and survival when we are children, like literally. So the approval gets confused for survival very early on. So I want you to just pause now and see if that resonates. In what ways are you mistaking, even now, maybe in adulthood, your own mother's approval for your survival? And if you'd like to share, we would witness you and honor you. And so this brings us to spiritual reparenting. Our literal earth birth mothers are human, and no human is perfect. So spiritual reparenting is when we ask ourselves, what would have been the best mother for me? What would have been like the most loving, most nurturing, most accepting? Like, what are the qualities that either I would like to embody if and when I become a mother, or that I would have benefited more from as a child? And you begin to build these qualities in yourself and practice embodying this mother, this inner mother, for yourself and for others. It can be really radical for people who are already parents. Um, I just saw A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Mr. Rogers story, and that's what it's sort of reminding me of if you've seen that. Like, the father in that story um, had a really abusive father. And so he just like was not attuning to his own child as a baby. Um, and I mean, there's so many themes of like toxic patriarchy in this story, but through through watching Mr. Rogers, he begins to be present and attuned to his child. And in that same way, he's attuning to his inner child. So that's the connection with this work. Very powerful. Very powerful. So what we're going to do now, I've laid enough groundwork. I know we're 40 minutes in. My goodness. I feel like I'm just talking and talking. And take a drink of water here. Is this resonating? I'd love to hear. What we're going to do now is we're going to meet the inner mother. I'm going to guide you in a short visualization, a little bit of Jin Shin Jitsu acupressure, self-touch, if that feels okay. You can skip it if not. And then we're going to do a little guided journaling and a little ritual at the end. So get comfortable, finding a way you can sit. Maybe you're on the earth. That would be beautiful. Go sit right on the earth in a way that helps support your spine. There's no tension in your shoulders. There's no tension in your neck or your back. Take a deep breath in and let it go gently. Closing the eyes if that's okay. Letting your breath be natural and easy, nourishing in whatever way you need nourishing. Mama Earth take some of the tension out of your feet, your legs, your hips and torso, back, neck and shoulders, your head. I invite you to first connect to your inner child, the part of yourself in this moment, wherever you are, that feels vulnerable. What worries or fears have you had lately, and where do they live in your body? Perhaps visualizing this part as a child, as you, when you were a child. And what are they doing? And now I invite you to draw on another part of the body, a part that feels stable, secure, grounded, or even neutral. And bring to mind your inner mother, the qualities you wish you had had in a mother, the mother you would like to be. Can you get a picture of her now? What's she like? What is she doing? How do you know she is safe? Wherever inner mother is set up, invite your inner child to enter her space. Bringing the fears and worries from before. How does inner mother greet her, welcome her? What gesture does she exchange to let her know she is safe? And if they were to have a conversation now about inner child's needs, how would that go? You can imagine it now, back and forth. How would inner mother meet inner child's needs? Bring this sense of harmony into your body and notice what happens. I invite you to place a hand on that vulnerable part, inviting the energy of inner mother into the hand and the energy of inner child into the body. And we're doing a gentle hold here, so very light pressure from the hand onto the body. Perhaps it's your heart, your belly, your face, wherever it is, holding gently, feeling both the energy of the hand and the energy of the body in balance. Breathing in and out of this space. Letting the union of inner child and inner mother alchemize some of this vulnerability in you. Taking the right hand, place it on your heart or your belly or your forehead. And apply the same pressure, taking a deep breath and sighing it out. Can you tip forward, just leaning into inner mother's strong, supportive grip and embrace. You are supported. You are precious. What words do you need to hear from inner? Say them aloud to yourself. Take a deep breath in and let it go. As you open your eyes, Luna is sleeping and she's barking in her sleep. I can see her in the mirror. Luna, you okay? That was really cute and really funny timing. Welcome back, beautiful one. How are you feeling? How is your inner mother? How is your inner child? I'd love to hear in the comments. I definitely saw my inner child and my inner mother embrace, and then for some reason they wanted to go out and catch lightning bugs and dance. It was really sweet. So, so sweet. The point of this is to remind yourself you can meet your needs. You can meet your needs. How often are we looking for a replacement for inner mother outside of ourselves? How often are we putting the blame on others because we don't want to look within? But you have everything you need. If you have inner mother, you have everything you need. So remember this exercise. You can return to it anytime you're feeling vulnerable, scared. She's always there for you. It's like basics of self-love and self-care. And from there, we can really open to vulnerability and see that it's safe. And then we can do all kinds of healing work, trauma work. We can hold space for others because we've held space for ourselves. And everything builds from there. So grab your journal. And I'm going to give you a couple of options. We're going to take 5 minutes. And you can either journal your experience with Inner Mother, what you want to remember from this experience. You can journal to Inner Mother. You can write her a letter from Inner Child on one side of the page, and then a response letter from Mother on the other side. Or you can do it back and forth, or write a letter, whichever letter feels like you most need to write right now, either Inner Mother or Inner Child. And the final option is to just journal your gratitude. Full moon energy, summer energy, mother archetype energy is all about gratitude, right? Claiming our pleasure, looking at it, and sending back that gratitude. So I'm going to make a gratitude list, and that's your final option. So take about 4 minutes now. All right. Sorry, there was some drama in the middle of that journaling session, but hopefully you had enough time to get a little bit of the juices flowing, and you can always return to this. When I start to journal my gratitude, it just feels like I could go forever. And I guess that's the point, is to remind us of just how much we have to be grateful for. And I'm really feeling that in this season of my life. So yeah, that was a good reminder. The last thing was a little ritual I was going to have us do is to take our stone, if you have one. If you don't have a stone, you could write on a piece of paper, but we're going to share our wish with our stone. What's your midsummer wish? Make it specific. Make it big. You are worthy. And instead of walking around a bonfire 3 times, we're just going to circle our candle 3 times. And instead of tossing it into the bonfire at the end, we're just going to place it on our altar. So go ahead and hold your stone. And this is Mama Earth energy as well. So stone, wood, anything from her will help earth and ground you. So go ahead and hold it at heart center, closing the eyes, breathing in and out of it, and just whispering either out loud or in your mind your wish. Seeing it come true. And now take it. Circle your candle 3 times. And so it is. Placing it by your candle. Thank you, beautiful ones. We'll blow out our candle together. But the fire in our hearts will always connect us. Thank you for joining me for this summer solstice training and ritual all about the mother. I would love to hear your reflections, your questions. I'm going to be sharing in the group some more tips on connecting to the mother because I did not get through all my notes in this hour. And here we are. I could just talk about her all day long. But I'm here for you. And if you want to book a free coaching session with me, if you've never worked with me, you can do that at ellengilbert.com. And some of the popular offerings that I have are around inner child and inner mother. So we can do live visualizations and I can coach you on what you see, as well as answer any questions that you had about this summer solstice ritual and training. So I'm sending you so much love today and all season long. May you feel the nurturing of the mother. May you lean into the vulnerability of the child, always remembering that you contain both and that you have everything you need. So much love to you. Happy solstice. Happy solstice. All right. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.